Today on In the House, we sit down with Kyle McCollum of McCollum Studio Architects. We talk about Ledgeway Modern, a project recently featured on the AIA Tour. We also have an important discussion about his work with the Austin 20. The Austin 20 is a group of community leaders and caring individuals who take action to fight against domestic minor sex trafficking in the city of Austin and the surrounding areas. They provide funding and support for programs associated with all aspects of this crime and those victimized by it. They also provide assistance for victims through recovery, mentoring, and rehabilitation. The Austin 20 supports organizations committed to assisting children victimized by sex trafficking. If you'd like to donate, go to theaustin20.org, click on the link, fill in the amount, and donate today. We hope you like this episode. If you do, share with a friend and give us a 5-star rating. Thanks for listening. Welcome to In the House. Today we are speaking with Kyle McCollum of McCollum Studio Architects. Kyle serves on the board for the A20 nonprofit organization and is a contributing member to the Stand Up 8, a nonprofit that helps find housing solutions for adopted children from broken homes. So, Kyle, it's awesome to have you on.
Thank you.
So I just want to say right off the bat that I do have a slight cough, so I will do
That's okay.
I will do my best to not cough and hack into the microphone for everybody's listening.
Well, it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger.
But so I kind of want to get into. I just went on the home tour, and I'm sorry I missed you, but yeah, my daughter and I went, and so she was.
Yeah, I tried to take a moment myself to get over. It's easily the worst part of doing the homes tours. The fact that the very people that you're doing this for, mm-hmm. you've actively created a structure that prevents us from enjoying the damn thing.
Yeah.
So there's no time set aside for us to actually go on that tour to see our competitors without just abandoning, just carving it out and say, hell with it. Let me just try to get this thing done like as soon as I can. And I didn't see 3 of the houses, but I managed to.
Did you go on Sunday, I take it?
I went on Sunday morning.
Yeah. Yeah, we went around Saturday, and like I said, it was me and my daughter and a buddy of mine. And, we really enjoyed the house. I mean, especially, like, as you walk up to it, it's very low, very modern. It's... From the road, it looks like single story, right? But as the lot slopes, which I see that a lot, as the lot slopes down from the back, it grows to just 2-story, right?
More or less. There's a lower mechanical and exercise level.
Which I was actually surprised they let us go through the mechanical. I know usually they kind of partition that off so you can't go through there, but. Yeah, they did a really good job. I mean, it's really clean.
Yeah, and that was one of the important things. I spoke with the client a little bit about it, although I think he would probably say, do we actually fully come to an agreement there? So when he listens to this, like, Jim, I may have misunderstood, but I thought it's so well done. We have a docent, there's a person down there. So it's not like anybody can really do anything down there, but that's one of the most important parts of the entire building.
Yeah,
it's like, you have to, and because... I mean, you guys know, just kind of being in the industry, it's like the things that people don't really think about, the average person, but you guys are just sitting there, and all the engineers that walk through, they're going, oh! No wonder. This is how the thing works. It is amazing how much space you have to dedicate, but we had it. It was down the hill. It was really not a ton of excavation. That wall, that retaining wall that's kind of on the back side there is doing more retention against fill than anything. Mm-hmm. Than protecting an open cut there. So I mean, this is really nicely layered down the site. So we had the space. I wanted the entire level actually to be a little bit more programmatically for the exercise room, but we were able to kind of squeeze it down a little bit for the clients and kind of give them what they wanted.
I thought it looked great, and definitely as a builder, it was nice to be able to walk through there and not just to critique, but to look around and see what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. Tip of the hat to Schoberg, because I thought they really knocked it out of the park. They did a great job. And you can really tell, if a builder's worth their salt by their mechanical rooms,
Oh, for sure.
It's one thing to get all the
the finishes, the tile and the drywall and the cabinets and stuff like that. But you go peek in the mechanical room and it's a nightmare. It's like,
that's right.
I thought they did a really good job executing that.
And one of the things what I tried to, for the more inquisitive folks, the non-industry people that came in that had some questions. I had one guy that's like, "Hey man, hey. Do you know all the equipment down there?" I'm going, I think so. I mean, there's inevitably a few lighting control boxes and things I don't understand the name of or what they're exactly doing, but like, sure. I know what the DHU is and the ERV, and I know what there's a water heater out there, the software, and but the funny part is though that I tried to explain to them was like, there's not just like one guy doing this whole thing, right? It's like the important part of having that knowledge base as the architect is like when you have a partner like Schoberg Homes who can execute that kind of thing, they're also leaning on us partially to say, hey, wait a second, these are the consultants way ahead of time that are trying to program this thing, they're engineering this thing, everything has clearances horizontally and especially vertically. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Like you can look at a plan and everybody's looking at, there's space for this, and this, but you're not looking at the vertical stuff as easily. And then the Haas people at Haas Technologies, who big shout out to them, are a big partner on that one. They have these big lighting control systems and all the kind of the electronic power plant of the house. It's got a BTU output on it, and it's got clearances and access and ventilation and all that sort of stuff too. So it's managing and coordinating and stacking all that it's a fun part of our job. It's kind of a dorky part of our job, but
it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, so how early do you involve the builder in all that?
As soon as we can.
Yeah.
As soon as absolutely possible. I mean, if I could do it right off the jump, it'd be awesome. But in all practicality reasons, the moment we get past a stage of like 1,000% confidence with the client about here's a solution to the problem that we think is really, really working well. Yeah. And here's a beautiful 3-dimensional model, SketchUp, probably beautifully rendered and stuff, or at the schematic, in the bowels of schematic design at that point, right? It's like, okay, here's like the thing. It's like, all right, we don't have everything figured out. The client is like giving us a huge hooray on everything, but you also have to kind of know that this feeds back into the builder thing, but that the clients are not giving you a forensic approval. They're giving you a like overall contextual visual approval, like because we're showing cabinets, we're showing countertops, we're showing even furniture in these models. It's like I don't know what the hell that is.
Right.
Like I have a vision, sort of.
Yep.
But to imply that I've taken a lot of time to really think about all of it, don't know. But the builders can come in and now they can start to help contextualize these conversations, right? They can start to, kind of slice and dice a little bit because they're going to inevitably look at any given project with a different set of eyeballs and different kind of parameters and context of this thing. And so that way we don't get too far off the leash, that is.
Sure.
Which is the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it allows you guys to really do the work that you should be doing, which is actually client building.
Kind of looking at the buildability of it.
Buildability, right. Well, I mean, but also the buildability of the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's just as important as the tangible thing that you're erecting. It honestly is like the building of the relationship, given some basic levels of compatibility with their expectations, right? It's like, assuming you kind of get past a basic, line there, it's like I think any good contractor who's compatible with the team is going to take that and use that opportunity to really make sure that what they're looking for, what their expectations are all kind of symmetrical, and everything's kind of working. And then that puts you guys in a super great position to build a team around those people, mm-hmm. To start to work. If there's an existing house, they can start to do some exploratory demo or something if it's a reno. And then you're a really, really good resource. And then that way you're kind of all along, you're there with us during design.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And that's why Schoberg's team is so good about that stuff. Like they're always there, like side by side with us the whole time.
You work with them a lot? Or
I do. Yeah, I do.
How do you go about kind of fostering those relationships? Like how do you...
With the contractors?
With a builder, with a contractor. I mean, mm-hmm. what's your resource for getting those relationships? And
I actually don't really know. It's a good one. Some of it's organic. Every now and then I'll bump into somebody who, is maybe has built something for an architect that I regard as being a standard pusher or something like that, maybe, or somebody I look up to, or somebody's a competition, or somebody's, has built something that maybe is in a market that I'm looking to get into, or I've maybe a little less experience in that particular area, or even from a style standpoint, it's important. You have to have some alignments too. It's like, people that are, for doing something that's, super, super modern, has a ton of glass, but also has a lot of beautiful masonry and like dry stack stone and everything else. It's like a lot of guys don't really have, they can do the modern thing because it's, the contemporary thing that everybody's building, but this house is actually about the masonry. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can't just roll out your same old crew that's been doing whatever. And then the philosophy, the timing, the structure, the communications, like I'm looking how people kind of set the goals and the structure around everything. It's, you can always overstack something, right? Because not everybody's built like Dogwish or Schoberg. But it's like, are you if you're not an outfit that's quite like that, and that's a big machine, you got to feed it. But there's a value structure in there too. It's like these people do exist, the structure in the organization, all of it. I mean, it's all something that's built into the cake there. But so I'm looking for, if that is the way that things are structured, it's like, okay, here's the value, the requisite value structure for that. And if there's somebody else who wants to become that perhaps, or is like trying to do as much as they can, are they doing the right things in the right way in the attempt to, because it's a recognition thing, right? That's mostly what it is. It's like, are you seeing kind of like where you could be short, and are you attempting to be the best communicator you can be? Are you really like that guy that's like, oh, I've never really worked with like an architect that I've always been like building stuff that like draftsmen and stuff is like I've been out of these pocket plans and stuff. Are they eager to try to? It's not for approval, but it's like they want to kind of do right by us.
Sure.
And that signals a respect to me, and it's easy to respect and.
They're trying.
Yeah, it's a collaborative thing for sure.
Yeah, right. They're trying to build, but they're ttrying to keep your design intent in mind. So I was actually going back to was it Ridge Creek Modern?
Oh, Ledgeway
Modern. Sorry, the one that was just on this year's tour.
Yeah.
And I was walking through with my daughter, and I was trying to get her. She's 5, so she's just in her own world, and I was trying to get her. Hey, look at this! Like, this is a cool. Look at this detail. She's like, yeah, whatever, and she would run off to whatever room. But no, I really liked the use of steel on that one. There's a lot of like all the countertops and some louvers, some other things. Like I really liked that. Is it just a blackened steel that y'all used on, or is it blued? Like I couldn't really tell what the finish.
There's some blackened steel inside of the interior slats, and there's some divisions that it's right there at the hearth. It kind of turns into a little window seat. Little moment right there. It's painted exterior. I wouldn't recommend trying to blacken structural steel outside.
Sure.
If you can, good luck. Show me how you did it.
I'm sure there's a way.
There probably is.
But no, another thing that I was curious about, and I was waiting to kind of sit down with you to ask, but in the driveway, when you walk up, there's like 2 doors, like 2 hatches.
Oh, there's 4 actually.
Four. My guess was that it was either the septic or some kind of rainwater collection. What was the
septic?
Septic. Okay, so I was right. I just wasn't quite sure. I was like, man, that's an interesting way to build a driveway on top of the septic tanks.
We had to fight for it.
Challenge, yeah.
We had to fight for it. And big shout out really to Schoberg and his team.
Well, tell me. I want to get to know you. Tell me about your background, where you're from. You're a native Texan, right? And,
I am. Always lived here my whole life.
Native Austinite, nice.
Although I will tell anybody coming from outside of Texas that if you lived in San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, and Austin, you've actually lived in like 4 different states.
Yep.
Entirely. Because San Antonio is obviously in Mexico. Houston, I don't even know where the hell that is. It's in Florida. Dallas is in Connecticut, and Austin's in California.
Whoa! Hopefully not. Let's keep Boston,
Colorado.
Yeah, maybe Colorado.
There you go. You wish, right?
Yeah. Well,
No, but we bounced around quite a lot. But I've known what I wanted to do since I was a baby.
really,
Before I even knew what architecture was.
how so?
Just doing very architecty shit.
Yeah.
You know.
Drawing, music.
Oh yeah,
or
oh yeah.
All of the other,
No,
all the
I didn't
above?
get the musical gene.
Okay.
I couldn't. I think I'm tone deaf too, but I couldn't carry a tune to save my life. Even though I tried, in middle school, I was last chair playing the cornet for 2 years, which is a nomination to the worst possible player that's ever existed. I earned that title, but I was an artsy guy. I was doing just building tree forts and Legos and all sorts of stuff as a kid. Just kind of exploring 3-dimensional space. It's like this weird craving. I was rearranging and stacking furniture. It's driving my parents crazy.
I can imagine.
Now I'd call it's an abstract art exercise or some bullshit like that. But as a kid, you're just making cool stuff.
Yeah.
You're crawling on all fours. This is a place where my parents can't get into, but my brother and I can.
Yeah.
What'd your parents do?
My dad was a sales executive for a long time. He worked for several kind of high-end jewelers and things, and then like Neiman Marcus and Tiffany's, Hamilton for a short bit, and then the back end of his career, he was at Administaff, which is in Sparity now. And my mom was a teacher for a while, but they retired to Austin. I want to say in like maybe 2010 or so. We were already here. I was at UT. My brother came to Austin as well. And we were running the wheels off the car. They were, and after he just retired, it was like booked it up, moved over.
Yeah.
It was fun to be close to us. And I'm very lucky I got to stay in Austin after college because Austin was where I wanted to be.
Yeah. It's a great city.
Yeah, it was.
So what? Kind of into my next question. What motivates you? I mean, what's the point of it all? Architecture, design, construction. Like, why? I mean, of all the things to choose to go into, what's the point? Well, why?
I guess it's easy to think about. It's like it's something that it's the way there's like an itch you have to scratch in a sense. You want to create and you want to change. It requires a type of vision on the world though.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's actually where it is. It's like there's got to be this like thing that's not, I don't know, it's like an itch or something, or like a craving even, that's like, I just want this like thing. I don't know what it is. This is like me as a kid, for instance, right? It's like something this is not quite right. And you can call it like an OCD thing on the extremes. But it's like you have to kind of feel that and absorb it and kind of come back to it and understand, like, wait a second. Once you kind of get to the point where you kind of graduate to like, let me adjust this thing this way, and what if, actually, what if I did, move this? So like one move might inspire another move, and all of a sudden you're thinking about, instead of like where the TV goes, it's like, how does the entire room shift?
Mm-hmm.
And then like, this room is wrong. And now why is this room in this part of the house? Right? It's like, now I'm sitting here looking at this thing. It's like, actually, I never really realized, like, that is horrible to have a powder room in the foyer. It's like, that's a horrible experience. It's like, why would they do that? Like, that's like one of my pet peeves, by the way. All you naughty people out there drawing powders in the foyer.
and then put zero sound exhaust fans on it so that you can hear a pin drop in there.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Just imagine. Welcome home. Just ignore Uncle Fred and they're unloading the chili cook-off.
That's good.
Oh, man.
He'll be out in a moment.
Yeah, I need like 2 fans going. You know what? What's a pet peeve of mine, since we're on the subject? We can send people to the moon, but we can't make a toilet that doesn't get clogged up. What's up with that? This might be a problem just solely on me, but it's very frustrating.
If you're clogging the toilet, sir, there's a problem. Yes.
All right, enough of that.
I think it's probably a cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah, maybe. I need one of them commercial ones that just launches it. Anyway,
let's change gears a little bit. I'm itching to hear about this A20.
Oh, sure.
This sounds like a really impressive
I want to get into
organization to be a part of.
Yeah, the A20 is it's a fun thing. I actually kind of stumbled into it. It was something that was was first introduced to it through Derek and Stephanie Land, who are former clients of mine. We did the house for them in 2019. That was on the home store in 2019.
I remember that one.
And Schobert built that one as well.
Schobert. That was the one where the pool was like 20 feet out of the ground.
The bathtub in the sky.
Yeah.
Tremendously difficult development on that project.
Yeah.
It was a real upside-down house at that point. That looks like the one-story. Kind of your first comment about Ledgeway seeming like it was it looked like a one-story.
Yeah.
That one actually did look like a one-story. It was much more underneath.
Yeah, that's okay. I remember that now.
But anyway, they really fun house, but she came back around to me at some point, and because she got rolled up as a volunteer in the A20 Foundation, which was founded by Lisa and Dave Knapp. Now Lisa's actually somebody you should probably talk to also. You want to talk about a firecracker, that girl.
I'd love to.
She's in one of these people that's kind of fighting the good fight and lives for nothing else than to help people. But Stephanie was a volunteer and asked me to help out a lending hand from a design standpoint for this place called Nicole's Place. Mm-hmm. Nicole's Place was going to be the first built satellite location for what was otherwise a fairly unique model that the A20 Foundation had set out for this thing. And what they do is actually will go and rescue underage girls, under 18 girls only, who have been sex trafficked in the Austin area, in the Central Texas area. And of course, me being the ignorant soul, I know this is an enormous problem, but I think sex trafficking immediately. I think of Eastern European girls, I don't know, maybe Latin America, South America, something like that. It's a problem that's not really. It happens, kidnapping and stuff. You always watch, documented crime documentaries and things. You think that's where it's happened, but this is actually a titanic civilizational problem, and it exists in Texas at a staggering clip, let's say. Yeah. And I learned a lot about it. And these are sometimes people that come from otherwise wealthy homes, well-to-do homes, very well-educated parents, loving families. And some of these girls that get snatched right out of the parking lot. I mean, there's almost no accounting for it. And they may turn up, they may not. And they'll be lucky if they stay inside the United States. And oftentimes they'll get picked up for trafficking or for solicitation or something like that, and there are drug charges, and being minors and things oftentimes, and being addicted, they're very, very hard to kind of break out of the thing that they've been kind of groomed into, right? And there was something that was in hearing some stories, and that's just the top level PG version of what some of these people have gone through, right?
Yeah.
And The Sound of Freedom does a really great job with some of this other stuff if you've seen that film yet, but.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
I'd recommend it. It's unfortunate, but it's a very educational.
That looks like it's
a tough one.
Very hard to watch. I have not, built up enough strength to watch that movie yet. But
but it's nonetheless, it struck a chord with me personally. When she offered that opportunity to go and help Nicole's Place, I met with Lisa, and got to know her, and she's an infectious personality, and she'll rope you in and be part of that cause so quick. She has a good instinct for people, I think, too. And but we set out to design Nicole's Place, and I took a lot of the program and things, and I realized very, very quickly that there wasn't a terribly creative or lateral thinking at any level of the kind of the therapy space or the recovery space.
Yeah.
There was only really two versions that I could really kind of find. One was a 10-story stacked institution behind guarded walls, with some Gotham asylum, or it's some little teepee out in the middle of some cult land in the middle of Utah where you're smoking marijuana all the time and you're just detoxing or whatever the hell you're doing out there.
Yeah.
That's not practical either. So we had to try to create something in Texas for Texas girls. It was run by Texas people, and there's all sorts of other state agencies and things. There's some licensing and some regulatory environments and things you have to comply with in order to do the type of work you do and how you want to do it. But I tried to set out on this piece of property that Dave and Lisa had kind of dedicated to the foundation. to do something a little different, to use the architecture as one of the seminal pieces in the cog of recovery, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a place that was intentionally remote, intentionally very, very hard to find, had very little cell reception even out there, because a lot of these girls, they would try to run away. And we also had to prevent them from calling their pimps and doing whatever else. And oftentimes, but we had to make it accessible for the police to come and drop off a girl at 3:00 in the morning.
So they're trying to get out of there?
Sometimes.
They're trying to go back?
Sometimes.
Is this like...
That's the complication, right?
They're brainwashed.
Yeah. It's the complication. That's sometimes all they've known and experienced, and some of them are extremely violent with others. They're not it's a very complex dynamic, and of course, when you're dealing with girls of different ages as well, some have gone through horrific stuff, and some handle that very differently than others do.
Yeah.
And then and others far deeper into that chapter of wellness can speak to a little bit more about what to expect behaviorally. But I came to work and understand enough about what they were doing and what the mission was that I found that none of the examples that I could find were really compatible or say a net positive towards their recovery from an architectural standpoint.
Yeah.
The location I thought was good. I'm really, really happy that they found the location that they did. But we set out to create these little satellite buildings. I created this is all pro bono work. Mm-hmm. Created a master plan that allowed this thing to kind of grow organically and with a system and a basic level of modularity that they could kind of tack on and add on. But it was kind of built up just slightly over the land, and it was kind of boardwalked, right? So we had common communal areas and playscapes. It kept it off the ground for some insect mud and snake reasons and things, but it was intentionally not too high. We didn't want to handrail it, right? So you can imagine just like a boardwalk you might see in the swamp. It's like I wanted to create between these little they were triple wide buildings where these girls would stay, and they'd have a little house mom, right? But we had to set those apart just enough, and there's a community one and some others, some other activity buildings. But we wanted to create a pathway between these two buildings where there was enough social engagement. You didn't want to have isolation, but you wanted to maintain privacy. You wanted to have community, but you didn't want to be you didn't want to force the idea of community.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so oftentimes when you create pathing, you don't, and without railing though, it's not a constrictive path, it's a suggestion, right? So you wanted to make sure that as we're developing this architecture, that the environment of the recovery that these ladies were working so hard at to get these girls to follow this path, that it was imbued with a level of increasing liberty, right? You don't want to restrict liberty and keep a constant form of it. Like you would in an institution or a prison or something like that. Yeah. It's like the rules are very tight, but if you create the environment around those rules that doesn't feel like it's designed against them, but it's instead designed for them, then all of a sudden it creates a level of trust in what they're doing, and then the effectiveness of the recovery techniques start to take hold a little bit better.
How many girls was this place made for? Or
I don't remember, but I want to say it was somewhere around 80 or 90.
Wow.
At the max. It's not there now. And I hope it, well, in one sense I don't hope, but like I hope it does get to the point where they can take on that capacity. But it's a dynamic thing though, like how quickly things are moving and like where the energies are flowing, and
still it helps put scale to
a little bit
what you're talking about. 80 or 90
we created a master plan, and there's a revolving thing here. I mean it's a medium stay. It's not overnight, but it's also not for 6 months. And if a girl turns 18, she's out.
Yeah.
No men allowed, no boys allowed on any of this stuff. But I felt like the vision was hard to articulate, but I did my best. And I think once we kind of got past a couple of the early learning curve with me about exactly like what these people were really going through,
yeah,
it's like then all of a sudden like it just kind of like, wait a second, we're thinking about this in the wrong way. It's like, let's use this beautiful piece of dirt. Let's use the remote location. Let's use the orientation, the trees, the wind, the sun, the grass.
From
all of
an
these things that
architectural
slow
standpoint,
down. Yeah.
it's an incredible thought process because you are using architecture in a completely different way than you would for a client who's building their dream house. And the psychology involved in your architecture for that project, that's incredible.
Yeah. But it's the same principles, right? The pathology is the same. The philosophy is the same. It's human-centric. Mm-hmm. And I'll always say this really to anybody. It's like you don't actually need that much technical training to be an architect. If you're a good enough predictor of human behavior, you can be a good architect. That's really what we're doing. Like I can show you how to draw a line on a page, but like learning and paying attention to people, really pay attention to them, because most of the time they'll throw you off. They'll say something, but that's not really what they're. Yeah. That's not really what it is.
Yeah, we hear that quite often.
Yeah. Well said.
I love watching people, especially in an environment that's like 90% right.
What do you mean by that?
Because if you put somebody in an environment that's grotesque, that's horrible, it's like, well, you enter it and it's just like, ugh, this place fucking sucks. There's no recovering from that, right? Like there's not a challenge anymore. You kind of have to just take the whole thing, toss it in the bin, and give them something new. It's the ones that are like average. They like it, quote unquote, but they don't. They just don't know how to articulate why they don't, And you can study. That's the fun part, right? Because then you can go and say, wait a second. You can twist around a couple things, massage this, put that over here. That's like the meaning and the glory of like when you take a renovation, for instance. Somebody who's lived in a house for a long time and they want to renovate it, and you show them something new, and they're like going, oh my God. Like, I just thank you. It's like a new lease on life. It's really fun. It's rewarding. But yeah, it's human behavior, and humans are a strange breed. And the girls that we did for A20, it's having very limited, only had really intentionally very limited access to any of them to hear firsthand. But so a lot of it is kind of hearing second and third hand about their needs and things. But there's all sorts of challenges that we had to accommodate. So when we started to create something like a modular community that could grow almost as they were there, and I actually created that boardwalk system I was talking about, the circulation. It was roofed, but it was all made of the same boards. It was all pine boards, 2x6. Everything was created like that, but you could actually slot them in and tack them in with like, it wasn't full mortise and tenon joiner. It's kind of hard for me to explain, but it's like you could build a separate little kit, almost like a pallet, and then 3 girls could even build that themselves. And then they could both carry it and kind of slot it in and like do the next one. And then you could kind of see this activity and this productive means to like the recovery. Mm-hmm. It was honest. It wasn't too stringent. You don't need a very high skill set to do it. You probably need somebody overlooking the overall process who does know what they're doing. But it's nonetheless a skill learning thing as well, right? And then they can kind of see something growing. They can go home and see like, hey, look, we put 2 of those bays in. Now we're almost reaching that next pad where the other building's going to be built, or where the new thing is over here or whatever. Like, that's fun. That kind of stuff is fun. I identified directly with that, but particularly with girls who have been denied a lot of opportunity in their life and have been taken advantage of. You have to try to coax that empowerment, that confidence, and that sense of self-worth out somehow. In creating an environment, this is just architecture. It's how our buildings relate to the human beings that inhabit them and create them. It's like a civilization should, and it rightly is already, should be judged on what it builds. First of all, what it can build, and then ultimately what it does build. If you think about it in historic terms, ancient terms, actually, I would argue it's actually the standard by which we judge all civilizations.
That's true.
And it kind of opens up a different kind of thought process to you. It's like, why do we build the things that we do if we had the choice? If we really had the choice? It's a funny exercise, I think, too. But The 820 thing is a very grounding mechanism for me intellectually. It's orienting. And it helps me. It helps me, stay planted. I think, even with a house like Ledgeway Modern, the enormous chasm difference between that project and something like Nicole's place. What we're doing is, there was a prefabricated, triple wides. I didn't even do the buildings themselves. I just did the master planning, all the boardwalk. But it took the same thought, right? It took the same effort almost. Still, and they're somehow equally rewarding.
What does 820 stand for?
Austin 20.
Because I was doing a little bit of reading on Austin 20, and basically, there's just 20 members, right? Was the initial
initially? I think it's
grown.
It's kind of blown that apart.
When it first formed, it was like what was her name again?
Lisa,
and like 20 other members, and that kind of became the Austin 20 Commission. But what goes on at Nicole's place? Like, what's the? You said it wasn't an overnight stay, but it wasn't 30 days either. Like,
so a lot of it is actually it's a place for displaced girls, right? It's like the intermedium, or like the stopover point between very temporary housing like jail to permanent housing, right? But these are underage girls, so what you don't want to do is have them go into the foster care system or get picked up because they don't have anywhere to go. They go right back to where they came from. And so this was intended to be like that little island in the middle, to kind of stop, catch your breath, get away, detox first of all.
Yeah.
But get an environment where you can meet other people having the same struggle. There are professionals around you at all times. You're safe from the other entities, but you're not too far. We're not taking these people across the world here. Mm-hmm. And then that it just helps position them mentally and psychologically, and just by virtue of time, it allows the staff to find the permanent housing. Yeah. And some other strategy, whatever these girls really need. And some stay longer than others. At least I'd be able to tell you a little bit more about the specifics of the duration of stay and like some of the terms and things, because I think there are actually some state regulated kind of things about what does happen there.
And these are all Texas girls, right?
As far as that's my knowledge, to my knowledge, that's at least that's the goal, and that's what is intended. I don't think that we're running out of them. But
is there an attempt to reunite with family or try to get them? I
hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. Downstream, I honestly God hope so. You would think so. You think that'd be the first one, but but it's if and when those people do exist and they are craving for their child to return to them because they were kidnapped. It's obvious that's an obvious destination for them long term.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're runaways, and the domestic environment from which they came is the toxic relationship, and it's the abusive place, and then where do you go?
Yeah, it's such a hard problem to solve.
It's a very hard problem to solve. The trafficking problem can be solved. Wherever there's malice, there has to be benevolence and compassion and effort, and we just have to choose. We just have to choose if we want to fix it and if we really want to talk about it. It's sad in the world with the internet, and phones, social media, where the education system is nowadays. Yeah. Parents working so hard just to afford the house that they couldn't afford in the first place. Neglect. Resentment, all those things kids absorb, all of it. You have a little young 5-year-old right now. She's watching everything, and she's listening. And it's like I got a feeling that there's nothing else on this earth that's going to matter more than that little girl there too. So
a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old
and a 3-year-old. There you go. Yeah. Congratulations.
After listening to your story, I think I'm gonna go home and stick a tracker inside my.
Yeah, man. It's definitely a topic that comes up quite frequently, with me and my wife, and just staying vigilant and the world is not what it used to be even when I was growing up. it just seems like you can't trust people like you used to, and you definitely don't let your kids stray away too far. It's scary, and it's just something that
what I hope doesn't happen though is that we need. I think because I'm just like, I don't know how old you are. You look a little bit younger than I am. But back when I was growing up too, it's like, but we played. We ran outside. Yeah. My mom would call there was, because we didn't have Netflix. We're not sitting at home all the time. We're not sitting there, texting and we actually went to other people. We met and engaged our community and our neighbors. That's actually what we need, because no single parent can really do that. It does take a village to raise children. So use your community, be active, right? Get to know the teachers, get to know the principals, get to know their parents, of their friends, and all these other people that have a role to play, a very big role. It's not about lack of trust. It's just a little bit more about awareness, right? And understanding and trusting the relationships that you build. They just need to be restored to their previous state, right? Naively trusting a stranger off the street is no dumber, smarter than it's ever been.
100%. No, you're right.
That's just foolish.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember growing up. Yeah, running around outside in the neighborhood, just being out. Parents had no idea where I was, and climbing trees, building forts, like you mentioned, tree houses, and just creating and having fun. And of course, my dad would come outside and whistle real loud, and we'd come running back home.
My mom would do the same.
And I wish I could whistle like that, but anyway.
We'll get you an air horn or something.
Maybe. But yeah, it's just, you don't see that, you don't. Luckily, we have 2 kids, so they can play with each other, and they're in school, and they have school friends, but you just don't, I don't know, you don't see that community as much anymore these days.
It's a shame.
Not as much. You got to go find it.
Yeah, you got to find
it. I mean, of course it exists. 100%. They're out there. Those neighborhoods exist, and those communities do exist. But it's definitely not accessible to everybody.
And you have to be active.
You have to be active.
Like you said, you have to go and be a part of it and seek it out.
You do. You have to seek it out.
And that, of course, all of that rolls back into what? The environment and the community and the design and the density and the sidewalking and the porching and the parking and like the walkability, even the nights. Like my in-laws right now, they live in Mueller. And they did a good job in Mueller. It's really working pretty nicely. There's some things I probably would change a little bit, but it's working really well. It's like we were over there for Halloween. It was like a horde.
Oh, I bet for Halloween
of children. It restored my faith in humanity. It's like all this catastrophism about population collapse and the future generations. It's like, it doesn't look like that in Mueller. This is old school over here. This looks like the baby boomers right here. And it was fantastic. It was everybody, and it was a good mix of people too. And it wasn't. It's funny how quickly a well-designed community just changes your day to day. It's like those. It's the accidents. If you kind of unaccident your life, you don't learn anything. You don't meet anything. If you order all your food from Amazon, you don't meet that interesting guy at the grocery store. It's like that's stuff. It's like
that's true. The color in life.
The color in life. Yeah, it's a good way to think about it, right? It's like you can sit there and watch black and white TV all day and convince yourself that the world looks one way, but this is Plato's cave, by the way. If you really want to dive in and read about real philosophy.
That's where they're chained, looking at the one
the reflection
wall, and all
on the
they
wall.
can see is shadows in front of them, and the shadows become their reality, kind of a thing.
Exactly, and then one escapes, and it comes back and is
the guys don't believe him.
Exactly,
you're crazy.
Exactly,
there's another world out there that.
But because it becomes this circular thing, right? And then the guy, of course, who escaped is eventually convinced that he in fact is crazy. And then reverts back to the very same paradigm because he's not reinforced constantly.
He doesn't believe his own eyes.
And his surroundings are convincing him that the reality is X, and in fact it's actually Y, and that he hallucinated. It's a fun allegory actually to human behavior that overlaps these ancient themes that continue from ancient times on to now. This is why religious scriptures are still relevant.
Yep.
They knew all that shit long before you and I ever got here.
Yeah, yeah, timeless, man. It's still applicable.
Yeah, it really is. And all of those things, they help you, right? They help you think about your spaces, about this thing this sheltered thing that's the culmination of all of this fantastic technology and energy that we've put into this shit, right? It's like the only technology that existed when no other technology existed was the shelter thing. Like the monkeys are doing it. We see beavers and birds doing it, right? Like all creatures need some form of shelter.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't probably grew the shelter out of their back.
Yeah.
In the form of fur or something like that, right?
Turtle.
But there's no organism on this earth that doesn't have some form of shelter.
Yeah.
Maybe there is one. I don't know. But
let's talk about beer.
Let's go.
Let's talk about beer. You have a brewing company.
Do you have any?
No.
Oh, we didn't manage to get any this time.
Busy day.
Yeah.
You gonna butter me up like that? You can't.
I definitely want to hear about
if
this.
we were in our usual spot, we would definitely have some for you. But
I'm kidding. I'll just do.
Dang, contractors need to finish that remodel.
Lazarus is a fun place. Yeah.
How'd you get into that? I mean, that's
partial owner myself. Kind of a funny story. My older brother, my older half brother, is my dad's kid. He lives in New Braunfels. He's an ordained minister. He's also a tremendous mentor for me. He on one of his church-related ventures, he met a guy, this guy Christian Kreider, who's the founder of Lazarus Brewing Company, but he was also a pastor himself. He and his family, they were from, I think they were from Missoula, Montana, if I remember right. And they were but Derek met him in this as part of the pastoral activities, and found out that in fact Christian is actually moving to Austin and wants to start a brewing pub because he was always obsessed with beer. Christian was, and had met the guys at Big Sky Brewing, I think in Bozeman, I think is where they are. I could be wrong about that. Unbelievable brewery. Like I love Big Sky. And he got together and did this really fun kind of one-off beer. It was All Saints beer. It was a beautiful bottle. I still have the original one. It was one of just a few.
Wow.
But I was one of the first guys that he contacted on Derek's recommendation, my older brother Derek, to start thinking about a location in the Austin market for what this thing's going to be. And I was still at my old job at this time, before I started my firm. This is right around the time I did split off eventually. It was a complex time to get oriented on something. You're splitting off, and when you're doing mostly residential work, you're during your career. But I'd always wanted to be a multidisciplinary kind of studio, and this opportunity came up, and I was just all over it.
Yeah.
It was also, I think his alignment with what he wanted and how he wanted to treat and think about beer was really old school, right? And kind of the monastic kind of approach to brewing beer, right? Like it's what the monks used to do back in the Black Plague, that kind of thing, right? Like this is where we break bread in a sense. Like we drink beer because the water sucks.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right? This is just kind of where people go and truly talk about this is like a real pub, right? Like a real one, say in rural Ireland or something like that. I mean, that's like where you just go. Mm-hmm. You go home later, but like you just go to the pub. Mm-hmm. It's like that's where people go. And that's where the thing happens, right? That's what foments revolution. It's like those accidents I was talking about. Those things happen in the pub. He wanted to create, but without creating a pub. He didn't want a pub. He wanted a beer place. He wanted this to be about beer and have some kind of reverence that was, I think, from a branding and marketing standpoint, he wanted to invoke a lot of those themes and those characteristics and the kind of the spirit, no pun intended, that approach that they applied to their creations back then. He wanted to bring that to Austin, that kind of spirit. So Lazarus being the saint who was died and rose from the dead, He was also wanting to kind of bring that theme, that kind of element back to an emerging beer market, to the microbrewery scene that was exploding at the time. We looked at so many properties. And it was really, really wonderful because as long as I lived in Austin, I had never really ventured over to East Austin on that part yet. And this is back in 2015, 2016. And still, it seems like recent, but not in Austin terms. It's a completely different place now.
That's
come back next year and it's completely different too. So there's still a lot of opportunity, a lot of old abandoned buildings and warehousing. It's kind of a little bit of an industrial sector over there. Some super interesting things we got to kind of crawl through. But it was helpful for him, I think, so I could kind of show him some ideas and opportunities, some potential. We finally found a really, really cool 2 buildings, one next to each other. Then established Lazarus Brewing Company. I rolled a bunch of my fees at the time into the equity in the business, even though I couldn't afford to. So I needed the money so bad, but I really loved what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it's been fun. It's a fun place. I actually don't go often, just because I don't drink a ton of beer anymore these days. But it was nonetheless a fun place.
So what's
a cool project.
Lazarus Brewing like? I mean, what's the building? Host big events there? I mean, it used to be a nonprofit called like Bike Texas, I think it was a nonprofit building, if I remember right, over on East 6th Street in Chacon, the corner of 6th Street in Chacon. Okay.
There was also a little market grocery store that was right there on the corner. It was a revered place. It had all sorts of really cool, this big Bob Marley, street mural that was on the side of the building. But the building was a decrepit, it should have been a condemned building, frankly. I don't know how, it was really honestly still in business. It was a fire hazard waiting to happen.
Wow.
But that was the adjacent building right next door. But we got in there and we negotiated, or Christian did really, negotiated the terms of the lease because it was about the right size. We knew we needed to add on a cold room on the side, but there was room to do that pretty effectively. But we got everything in there. Took a lot of planning and a lot of coordination with all the immense list of the complicated subcontractors and things and all the consultants. There's a boatload of them. But we got it in there. But it had some good opportunity, I think, long term. So we started messing around with what it kind of gave us, and we did some exploratory demo. It had this nasty, a ceiling quite, like this, a drop down acoustical tile, but let's say it's seen better days.
Yeah.
Right. And so we popped one of the ceilings and we're looking up there going, oh my gosh, that's beautiful, like longleaf pine ceilings.
Yeah.
Open web floor truss, or ceiling joists, and gorgeous, built in 1940. The building was, right? Yeah. And it was an old parapeted roof building, but at some point they had put a tin gabled roof over it.
Okay.
We're surely this is this one spot this cool ceiling is. It's like there's going to be some horrible mold or some fire damage or something. We're going to have to rip this out. So we started, once we got in there, we started doing all the finish out. We discovered that this is a gorgeous ceiling. Yeah. It's in great shape. And we had at that point, we got really excited about what this thing was going to be.
Ideas start flowing. You see all that.
Well, it allowed us financially, because the budgets were really tight.
Yeah.
It allowed us to kind of get past that. Oh, thank God. It's like, because there was something budgeted for that kind of thing. We were able to, we wanted to make sure that people who came into this building saw how we were retrofitting this thing. We were using a part of Old East Austin. It wasn't demolished. It wasn't building up some fancy new high-rise condo thing. We wanted it to be accepted by the community as part of the community, which of course it was. It was there for a long time, and so was the building next door. And so connecting and refurbishing and honoring the integrity of those two buildings, especially as identifiable placeholders in the neighborhood, was a really critical design factor for how we approached that. I think it went well. It went really, really well. It's a fun place. It really is. The beer's,
I want to go see it.
The beer's great.
Yeah, I've never been there, admittedly. So
the tacos are insane. Just hook yourself up. Just have a ball. It's a fun place. They do a really, really great job. They take a tremendous amount of pride in their craft, and that's what it is. It's craft.
Mm-hmm.
It's at every level. It's really, really fun. I like being around people who take pride in their work, and they share it.
Yeah.
It's the sharing component of Lazarus is actually, at least Christian will probably tell you, is from a marketing standpoint, it's something that he wanted to make sure it was continuously kind of reinforced throughout as they kind of tried to brand themselves to the broader community. It's just kind of sharing life is their motto, and I think if you pull up the website, sharing life is probably the bulletin you'll run into pretty quick.
It's inspiring when you work with craftsmen who care about their work and or geek out about it. That's inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, but he also, Christian, his, to kind of reinforce that a little bit too, because I love smoking cigars. I have a pipe also with some tobacco. It's really fun. But his youngest son is actually one of the best pipe carvers in the United States. It's unbelievable stuff. I mean, the kid's a savant when it comes to these pipes. Anyway, it's kind of neither here nor there, but it's the craft thing is passed down, let's say.
Yeah, that's always super interesting, and that's kind of why we're all together. I mean, because we all have a passion, for what it is that we do, and I'd love to kind of branch out and get some of these guys on, who are craft brewers or artists, sculptors, people who make pipes, but that passion is there, and that's what's like truly interesting to me. But anyway, I mean, I wanted to go back to what you said. You said something about sharing life together, and that reminded me. Congratulations, you were married.
Thank you. Yes.
This year?
March.
Yeah,
back in
awesome.
March.
Well, congrats.
In London.
In Mandarin Oriental in Hyde Park.
Yeah, impressive.
Yeah.
You're
I'm a limey.
Limey?
Yep, I'm a limey.
So
what? My accent doesn't give it away.
I was fooled.
I've been here for quite a while, but I was born over there, raised over there.
Where, in London?
Not in London, southwest of London. Actually, really close to Stonehenge. Out in southwest.
Sure.
Out in there.
Wiltshire County.
There was I'm getting to an age where not many people remember this TV show, but on PBS there used to be something called All Creatures Great and Small. And that is kind of where I came from. That's a perfect snapshot.
So, is that on YouTube? Can I go look it up?
Probably is.
I want to see where you were.
Yeah, it's old, out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's like out in West Texas compared to Austin, but in the English version of that, just out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And kind of to what we were talking about. I grew up playing with sticks and animals and outside running around and
blowing stuff up.
Not till I got a little older.
Okay. Oh man. Well,
one of my favorite hotels is out there, the Antrobus Arms. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, right there. I think it's in Wiltshire County. It's right over there. Near. It's one of the close. I think it's the closest hotel to Stonehenge.
Okay.
But I've been trying to follow on the internet if there was some tunneling project that they were. I hope they nixed that. They were supposed to dig up underneath to bypass the Stonehenge traffic and stuff, but they were inevitably going to dig up half of the history of Britain under there. So.
Well, that'd be deep enough.
Yeah, that's cool stuff.
Well, what do you do for fun? I know you kind of dabble in a lot of different things.
I do.
What do you like to do for fun?
Well, I'm getting my pilot license right now, which I didn't anticipate really how long that would take for somebody who has a career.
5,000 hours, is that right?
No. The average is probably 55 to 65, I think.
I thought it was a lot more than that.
Maybe for a commercial jet.
Yeah, to get like ATP rated to fly commercially in the left seat captain. Yeah, probably.
That's not bad. 50 hours.
No, it's really not. But there's books. There's a lot of studying, ground school and stuff, and
that's 50 hours of just flying time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, there's a lot. I know there's a lot that goes into it, like you said, at ground school.
And 50 hours would be ahead of schedule from an average standpoint, but it's certainly doable. People have done it. It's a lot of fun. But I wish I could do it more often. My wife gets so nervous. She actually started doing it with me, and it was just not. It was just not for her.
Yeah.
What do you like to fly?
Where?
What do you like to fly? What type of plane?
Oh, well, the craft that I was training on is a Piper Cherokee, a PA-28 140. Little, I think it was manufactured in like the early 60s. But obviously it's been, updated and maintained since then. But it's a low-wing aircraft. It's got it's not turbocharged, it's not twin engine or anything like that. It's about 180 horsepower. So it's got a good enough power, but it's like a powerful lawnmower in the sky. It's good for training. It'll get you where you want to go, but it's just not going to be all that fast. But it's
pretty safe.
It's hard to stall. It's a really hard plane to stall. It's incredibly stable. Really good, sturdy aircraft, but not too heavy either. So it'll be advertised as like it could carry 3 or 4 people, but it's really a 2-man aircraft. Yeah, it's got a yoke. It's not side stick. It's not a joystick. Good avionics suite. No autopilot.
Nice.
And decent visibility, actually.
You flown anywhere yet, or are you just doing local training?
Flew out to Lajitas once. You know where Lajitas is? Out in West Texas. It's right there on the Rio Grande. It's kind of one of the last little towns between State and National Park of Big Bend.
Okay.
It's about an hour and a half from our flight.
Nice flight.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. The instructor and I went out there to satisfy one of the cross-country components of the flying training, but I have property out there too, and we have a client that we're designing a home for out there as well. But I'm a member of that golf course that's out there too. So the resort, whenever you buy property out there, you're a member of that resort. So we went out there, we played some golf, and we got to stay at the resort. And the airport out there is fantastic. It's made to accommodate all the private jets that come in and out of there sometimes. It's really, really gorgeous flight. It's because you don't get to truly appreciate aviation when you're flying commercially. You're too high.
That's true.
You're probably cruising at anywhere from 31 to 36,000 feet.
Yep.
Maybe even higher. Then you don't get to see too much of the ground. But when you're down, and I think we were heading out there around 5,000 feet, 4,500 feet. And we had to change our elevation naturally as the terrain climbed, but just so center wasn't going to get too hard on us about falling off a radar. But nonetheless, it was an amazing experience. Just watching the earth just go from flat to hilly and to almost mountainous.
Mm-hmm.
And then the aridity too. You just kind of get that desert feel, and you're looking at things that are just majestic. And it's different than the Rockies, right? I mean, you're not flying through the Tetons here.
Right.
It's like, and you're also not flying through Appalachia. It's a different environment. It's a fundamentally unique place to fly around to. It is so fantastic. And Big Bend, it's Big Bend.
Yeah.
The Big Bend area is amazing.
But
it's a very unique landscape.
It is.
It's really cool to fly.
Especially
when you're flying
slow.
slow.
Like that
Have
few
you?
times out in West Texas, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
the perspective, like you say, to be that much lower, and then you realize, holy cow, that the elevations are impressive.
It's really cool. And you're seeing also, I mean, I had no idea how many people own little private airports along the way. I mean, it's there on all the sectional charts, but you don't really look at those areas until you're flight planning. And you go out there, and these people have these magnificent ranches and paved runways and things for their own private use. And
then one time we did it in a helicopter, and there was a low cloud cover, so
yeah.
pretty low.
Oh boy,
it's changed my view of deer ever since, because there is a deer feeder every mile, probably from here to El Paso. I mean, you fly out, that's all you see are deer feeders, deer blinds everywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. Have you ever been up in a small plane?
A long time ago when I was a kid, I did. Yeah, I was able to kind of take control of it for a little while, and then it was, I don't know, maybe a minute. I forget what it was. It was some camp in Oklahoma that I was a part of. But that was one of the things. They taught you how to navigate, and they taught you about the different aircraft, and then they actually took you up, and they would turn off the engine and
that's always a fun moment.
Yeah, that was fun. And I've been in a glider.
Nice.
I went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs.
Did you really? Nice.
Yeah, and I did not graduate there, but I was there, kind of a freshman and sophomore year. But during that time, I was able to go in one of the gliders, which is a really, really fun experience, especially in Colorado Springs. I mean, you're in the mountain, and being towed
That's
up.
incredible.
And they release that cable, and then you're on your own, and it's very quiet. All you really hear is just the rush of the wind. There's no engine noise.
Nope.
And you're just
That's cool.
You're just up there on your own.
Peace, isn't it?
It's awesome. Yeah, and you can pull some pretty hardcore G's in those things. And, they did some pretty hardcore maneuvers, and kind of really gives you a new respect for these jet pilots who pull several G's, and just the physical shape that you need to be in to be able to do that is quite impressive. But yeah, that's basically my experience with small aircraft.
That's really cool.
That was fun.
I remember when we were flying out to Leeds, we had to fly through the Laughlin MOA, which is a military operations area. But it's not a restricted airspace. It's just kind of a permanently dedicated area for military training exercises. Sometimes it's a little bit more active, and sometimes it's not. So we were flying through there, and we remember we called center and see if is the MOA active right now. And the guy's like, nah, not really. I'm like, all right.
What does that mean?
Roger that.
What's not really?
And of course, we have on our radar, we're cruising at like, this is on the way back. And so we're a much higher altitude to get because the winds aloft were really, really hard. So we were really booking it on the way back. But we're going through the same Laughlin MOA over there, which is like right at the kind of the bottom of the Panhandle area. Not the Panhandle, but just on the other side of that, right along the river there. And on our radar, we see this, my instructor was able to identify that the plane, it was a military plane, just by its call signature. I wasn't quite familiar with all the designations. And it was about 1,000 feet directly below us, coming right at us at our 12 o'clock. And we're just like, and there we are in this little, like, this little Cherokee plane. We're just sitting there, it's like, these guys are coming right at us. I'm pretty sure he's seen a lot more of us than we've seen of him, right? Yeah. And we see him just pass directly underneath us. It's like, that was kind of terrifying.
I mean, 1,000 feet that's a pretty close flyby, right? Yeah. Like when you're in the air, like 1,000 feet.
It's pretty close, I guess. It's pretty close.
Well, I know you always hear on the news like, a near miss. 2 airplanes, just a near miss. And they're 2,000 feet away, and you think that's not
1,000 feet's. Like 1,000 feet, for instance, is pattern altitude for a GA aircraft, right? When you're untowered, or even at a towered airport, you're 1,000 feet above the ground. Is when you're circling, slowing down, preparing to land. You circle in there and you get landing. So it's not that low.
Sure.
It's not that big of a difference, but there's certainly plenty of room for negotiation. I've had a couple close calls for miscommunications and stuff that were much closer than 1,000 feet. But,
right. Yeah.
It's the people that don't communicate are the tough ones in flying. It's like, my goodness. I'd rather miscommunicate with somebody who's at least talking and hearing us than somebody who doesn't communicate at all. Who just does what he wants to do.
I don't know how some people are even understood on there. I've heard radio stuff and thought, how in the world does anyone even know what that is?
You have to kind of have an ear for it over time. You have an ear for it. Especially with like air traffic control. They talk so fast. But
yeah.
It's an acquired skill to listen for what you're after. And you have to kind of anticipate. Always be 5 minutes ahead of the airplane at all times. It's a good lesson.
That is a good tip.
It overlaps into a lot of life, frankly.
Yeah, I can imagine that does.
Well, because it de-risks it, in a sense. It goes from a naturally defensive and responsive exercise to one that's an anticipated, planned, calm, ordinary, standardized approach to how you do things, right? And it's like that's part of being... There's kind of two halves of the flight training, right? One, the first part of it, the first half, is like how to fly an airplane. Second half is how to be a pilot. Which are two completely different things sometimes.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was, but it's nonetheless, it's an amazing thing. I hope I get to finish here early 24. I had to kind of stop. We had some things going on. I couldn't quite attend to it like I wanted to, and with the weather. It's just been so unfriendly to the skies. But other than that, working on my house. We have rental properties, hanging out with family, doing my thing. Football season's always football season. which consumes my brain on the weekends especially.
Yeah.
My Longhorns are doing so well, but then they're just so frustrating also.
Admittedly, I don't follow along with sports. It's just I enjoy playing sports,
nice.
But I've never been much for watching them. The last question I had before we kind of wrap this up, we're going into the holiday seasons, okay? And if you have friends out there who are architects or builders, what would you recommend to somebody who's looking to buy a gift for an architect?
Oh God. A time machine. Alcohol, cigar.
Yeah.
Really great bourbon.
Yeah.
Something like that. A nice pillow. Sound machine. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Of all the questions that we had, that was the hardest one.
Yeah, it was. It always is. Because you can't turn it off.
And what we've done recently, we've gone to auction sites and we're looking for not ridiculous, but reasonable historical artifacts of certain natures.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really want booze and you don't want superficial stuff. So the thought put into some, historical artifact. My wife's all into insurance. That's her thing. And like you, she's known forever that she's in insurance, which I don't know. That's sick. That's weird. And so one year I got online and I found it's an insurance policy from the late 1800s. And bought it and had it framed, and that sits in our house, and she thinks it's one of the coolest things in the world. And I'm it's if you took your car policy out today and put it in a frame and gave it to someone in 150 years, that's what it is.
It's true.
What a nerd.
But specific to what she's into, so she thinks that's great.
So of course, because, you geek out over construction and architecture, and she probably looks at it and like, geez, what a weirdo.
Oh, here's a framed hammer.
Yeah.
But there's not like an item. There's not necessarily an item.
Yeah.
I think the best gifts are always, like you're saying, are the ones that are thoughtful. They don't have to be expensive, and they don't have to be kind of suggestive. Let's say, like getting your fat friend a gym membership.
Or a treadmill. I was gonna say,
like or whatever,
hey,
right?
buddy.
It's like, don't you want this new awesome shirt to replace your other shirts? Or whatever. Right. Yeah. Like you give your stinky friend a can of deodorant or something,
Or an experience.
Yeah, something like that. But it's just, I think as architects, you spend so much time thinking about other people and working so hard for and on behalf of others. It's a tragedy that we don't treat ourselves better. And we don't give ourselves the time. I don't know, the collection phase of I don't know, there just needs to be a calm to it. There's no real break.
A time to step back, unplug. You don't have to
I guess so.
worry about your responsibilities as far as work. You don't have to worry.
Sort of,
you just focus on your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a goal, and I think if you set up your life right, you can probably work towards that eventually. But like my wife and I, my wife's an interior designer and she has her business too, and she's extremely busy, and we're trying to figure out how is it possible to not work in the whole month of January? Is that even possible? To say, sorry, we're gone for the holidays, whatever, on December, whatever, won't be back till February 1st.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah.
If you can do it.
If you figure that out. Yeah. Give me a secret.
It's how many people do you have to hire for that to happen? I mean, it's and do you want to come back to that email load?
That's
it's
true.
do you want all that crap? Because not everybody likes that. They want to kick off the new year with, some new activity.
Yeah.
Kick off the new year with right click, read all.
Yeah.
Done.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, surprisingly, that was actually very insightful. I really liked that. That was, I think, a great place to end.
Good.
Kyle, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun, actually.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I really, great conversation. I loved every part about it.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate your time.
Thank
Kyle.
you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck. You have a cool thing going on, man. This is fun.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed this discussion. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow us on Instagram. We want to hear from you, so leave us some feedback to help us shape future episodes.